Home inspector caught pleasuring himself with Elmo doll. Whoa.
Well, you certainly don't hear this one every day, and thank goodness for that, because a Michigan family had trusted a home inspector to look over their property as they got ready to sell, but when they checked their home security system, they spotted him violating their trust in one of the most egregious ways imaginable. He was pleasuring himself in the child's nursery with an Elmo toy. Yeah, pretty sickening stuff here. We'll go over how this unfolded, what happened to him, and how this could have escalated.
Yo, he looks like a
had him been
weirdo.
caught. And I'm gonna...
He looks like the type to do that. Like, he looks like a weirdo, bro. Like, there's something off about him, bro. It's that Megamind dome, bro. Like, that receding hairline that they all have, bro. All these predators be having. That he got the predator hairline.
Break it all down with renowned predator catcher Chris Hansen. Welcome to Sidebar.
Oh, Chris Hansen's on the scene on this story?
I'm
No
Jesse
way.
Weber.
Chris Hansen's on the scene on this one?
I think it's probably fair to say it's one of the most disturbing home security videos I've ever seen, and I've been doing this job for quite some time. We go back, unfortunately, to March of 2021. A family in Oxford Township, Michigan, outside of Detroit, was putting their house up for sale. So they called in a home inspector, as one would normally do, except everything that I'm about to tell you is not normal. You see, that home inspector was Kevin Wayne Van Loven, of nearby Clarkston. And according to local reporting, the family wasn't home when the then 59-year-old
he was showing a lot of loving
arrived to do the inspection. The homeowner, Jada Dodson, was alerted that there had been movement on the camera in the nursery. So we're talking the room of a reported 2-year-old, okay? So she clicked on the video to see how things were going in that room, and what she saw instead was Van Loven standing at the open closet door, his back to the camera, appearing to, I'm sorry to say this, but appearing to pleasure himself with an object. And as he turns around and zips up his pants, you can see what that object is. He is holding a red Elmo doll. A red Elmo doll. Yeah. Walks across the room, places the doll somewhere off camera, and as he adjusts it, you can actually hear that signature Elmo laugh on the security camera.
Oh my god.
Tell me that's not just the most incredibly unsettling thing you've seen.
Creepy.
But we got to bring in
That's
Chris
creepy,
Hansen
bro.
to talk
Oh my
about this.
God.
Renowned predator catcher, host of Takedown on True Blue and the podcast Predators I've Caught. Chris, good to see you. Happy New Year.
All I can say is poor Elmo.
Yeah.
I mean, I've confronted Jesse hundreds of predators in my career, but never one who was preying on a child's toy. A Sesame Street character. And what a sacrilege this is. And how do you even begin to get into the mind of somebody who does this? I mean, you've got a guy who's a home inspector, right? He's supposed to be protecting you, protecting your interest, or the interest of the buyer, perhaps in this case. And he does this in the privacy of somebody's home? It's disturbing.
It makes me wonder if there was a plan. If he knew, like, does he just walk in and find a toy that he, or is it like, I'm trying to make sense of it, I can't. But it makes me wonder if this was, in a way, premeditated.
Well, two things come to mind. One is, what is
It
this
gotta
guy's
be premeditated.
plan
It
when
gotta
he walks
be.
into any home? And why does it turn him on, apparently, to do this to a child's toy? And if you follow the psychology of many predators and criminals, is this something that would have continued into a more violent human contact crime? I mean, you know the rule. The guy starts as a peeping Tom, he then turns into potentially a sexual assault type of person, and maybe even a killer. That's the progression. So if this guy's starting with...
Wait. Is it two different... It's one person. Why does he have gray hair in one photo? And is it like two different photos from two different times?
Child stuffed animal. Does this grow into something else? What is he trying to get out of this?
Bro, that's
what
gross.
motivates somebody like
I
don't even want to touch
I know
that
somebody
thing.
starts
I don't
every
wanna
crime.
touch that
it has
toy,
to start
bro.
with one crime, but it makes me wonder: is this his first time?
Yeah, I mean, what makes a guy wake up, right?
Yeah.
Go to work. Let's see what's next on the list. 5203 whatever drive. Ah, there's a child's toy. Let me
Yeah.
go do this to it. It's very disturbing and difficult to understand.
guy's disgusting.
But you have to wonder what next.
And you make a great point about what happens if there was a child there. What
Yeah.
could have happened? That's a scary thing. But talk to me about, in your experience, do you see predators, attaching themselves to? Maybe it's a different kind of toy, or it's an inanimate object of some kind. I'm sure in your experience, you've seen people who have these attachments and do things to dolls. You know what I'm talking about. So I wonder if there was something.
What is the attraction here, though?
I don't know.
What is the attraction to a child's toy, and does it have something to do with actually being attracted to a child? You have to wonder that. I was going through the podcast notes to record later today, and it's a guy who.
Yes, you are attracted to. If you're attracted to a child's toy, if you're getting off on a child's toy, you are a predator. You're attracted to kids. That's it. Like, that's
Stone Cold
Simple.
told me that he had no intention of harming this child, and 2 weeks later, he's busted in a hotel room with another child. I mean, so what's the thought process, and where is it going? And if this is how he gets his satisfaction, his sexual gratification, when is that not enough, and when does he strike out at somebody who would be playing with that toy?
It's interesting you bring that up, because I want to add a few more layers to this story. So Miss Dodson apparently watched this happen in real time. And she told the outlet WDIV back in 2021 that she was basically frozen while she watched this and couldn't even articulate what she was seeing to her husband when he asked what was going on. Now, Dodson immediately called police. Deputies confronted Van Loven, who at first told them he was just moving the doll out of the way so that he could inspect an electrical outlet. But when the deputies revealed that there was a camera in the room, he reportedly confessed. He apologized. It seems he probably should have known that he was likely being watched in the video as he stands back up, because Van Loven actually looks directly at the security camera. It's very chilling there. I mean, again, do these criminals, are they naive enough to think they're not going to get caught? Did he think there wasn't a camera there in a child's room?
Well, I think they get so caught up in the moment that they forget about everything except for the sexual
Yeah.
gratification. It's just like the guy I referred to earlier. Here's a guy who got busted, was out pending an investigation, would have probably walked away from that case for a lot of different reasons, but 15 days later, he's in a hotel room with a 14-year-old girl. He's not getting away this time. So these guys, they tend to need to advance the level of their gratification to satisfy whatever fantasies they're chasing. And so what happens next, you know?
The fact that he confessed to it and didn't just say, I'm remaining silent. Do you see that? And look, I am not a psychologist, but do you see that happen a lot? Where
Yeah,
they're like,
I think
I'm caught, I want.
Well, I'm caught, and he figures, well, what's the harm here? I'm going to get away with this, and in 6 weeks, nobody even remember that I was the guy who, had my way with Elmo in somebody's house. And he'll move on, and unless there's some professional sanction, nobody's the wiser until and if he does something.
And you know what's the crazy part
And
is?
I'll
People are gonna forget. People are gonna forget this guy did this unless we keep bringing it up.
get into his consequences in a minute. I am curious, though, this is a home inspector.
Yeah.
Do people should they always be home when somebody's there? I mean, how much do you have to monitor what's
course.
happening in your life or what's
Well,
happening?
apparently-
I don't want random people in my house.
Talk about it with
Apparently
nursery
a
schools,
lot.
daycares.
This is something that makes me crazy in my personal life and in my professional life when I talk to people about security and safety issues. You need to know who's coming into your home. And if you're merely going on one of the social media platforms, Facebook Marketplace, and saying, well, there's a fellow who seems nice to come in and do some work, do you really know who that is?
Yeah.
And we have ways of checking backgrounds, and I think you can't be too careful. And I think some of these services, some of these platforms that you can use, subscribe to check somebody's background are not a bad thing.
Now, this homeowner, Jada Dodson, told WDIV in 2021, what if he had an STD and our son played with that? What if we didn't know? We have a toddler and a newborn baby too. There's nothing worse than when somebody comes to your home and you trust them to do a job and they do something like that in your child's bedroom. She makes a good point.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there are health issues here. I mean, this is a human bodily fluid that perhaps was spread to an object that a child could have played with.
Yeah.
And it's disturbing. I keep using that word over and over again, but I don't know if there's any other word that aptly defines it other than that. It's horrible that somebody would do that.
And we also looked up Mr. Van Loven on TruthFinder, the powerful background checker that we use to research our stories. And Van Loven's conviction in this case for aggravated indecent exposure is there. We also found a guilty plea that he took in the 90s for apparently operating a vehicle while intoxicated, but we weren't really able to confirm the sentence.
What is that, a DUI that they found on him?
But Law and Crime
has nothing to do with anything.
TruthFinder. We use it to get details on people involved in all of our stories. And look, even if you don't work in true crime, it can just be an excellent resource to give you some peace of mind. After all, it's one of the largest public record search services in the United States. And with a paid subscription service, you can get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. So if you're interested right now, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/LC sidebar. Okay, let's get back into this. You mentioned before something that was really interesting about you know, people who say they're not going to do anything again, they kind of repent, or what the consequences would be. So I mentioned Van Loven's conviction. So Oakland County, Michigan officials, they charge Van Loven with aggravated indecent exposure and malicious destruction of personal property less than $200. According to the Oakland Press, Van Loven's defense had argued that his genitals were never actually seen on the video, so the indecent exposure charge, that wasn't warranted. A jury disagreed. A jury convicted Van Loven in 2022 of the misdemeanor indecent exposure charge. He was acquitted, though, of the destruction of property count, according to reporting from Working RE magazine, since there was apparently no DNA that was found on the Elmo doll. Apparently the jury, that's why they couldn't find him guilty of that charge. Were you surprised by that decision?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to predict what a jury does, but I think that, Jesse, one of the disturbing things about this case, and it reminds me of a case a few years back in Louisiana where there was a deputy sheriff, a ranking deputy sheriff who was highly thought of in the community, who actually put semen in cupcakes that his wife made and brought for school children to eat. So, you know, what's the end game here? What is the fantasy they're trying to fulfill? And it turns out that in this particular case in Louisiana, this guy was guilty of all kinds of other things. And he was a bad guy. And the sheriff in that particular parish took action, and he's now locked up in prison. But, you know, there again, you have this very, abhorrent behavior, this shocking, who even thinks about this sort of thing? But he doesn't. Yeah. So you have to wonder, okay, what else is this person capable of, and what have they done?
Well, it's interesting because he was sentenced in December of 2022 to 19 days in jail with credit for time served, 18 months probation. He had also been undergoing mental health therapy prior to trial. The judge ordered that he continue with that until the therapist clinically discharged him. And during his sentencing, according to the Mercury News, Van Loven apologized, saying to the family, "It's difficult to express how sincerely sorry I am for the trauma and violation and disgust they must have felt. Not a day passes that I don't feel remorse and regret for my criminal activity on that day." He also apologized to his own family for the shame that he brought them. And according to court documents, Van Loven said that he intended to follow the sentence to the letter, but court records show he was convicted of violating his probation in January of 2024. So again, this idea of never going to do anything, I'll never do it, but
here you go. And that's a problem. So what do you do? I mean, I understand that this crime doesn't rise to the level of a crime committed against a child or an adult, but you see where we stand, and who's monitoring this guy? I mean, clearly he violated the parole guidelines, the rules that he was supposed to which he was supposed to abide, and now he's in trouble again.
Chris, if you had the opportunity to sit down with this guy.
Oh, I'd love to.
What would you ask him? What would you want to know?
What was going on in your mind that made you do this? What's the fantasy? What were you fulfilling here? And why a child's toy? And why do you have to do this when you're supposed to be working? I mean, I'm not the morality police here. Adult sexual behavior is, generally speaking, the business of adults engaging in that sexual behavior. That's not what this debate is about. The debate is about, why would you possibly do this and violate somebody's home, the sanctity of their home, where they raise their children, and think that that's okay? And where does this come from? That's what I'd like to know.
I think we'd all like to know that. I'll leave it with this. Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard said of this with respect to Mr. Van Loven: "Just when I think I have seen it all, someone steps up and surprises me with a new level of disturbing actions. Sadly, in today's world, we cannot take it on faith that the people we let into our homes can be trusted. We cannot always presume that employers have done their job and have confidence their employees are trustworthy and there to do the job for which they've been hired. This is a disgusting reminder to be cautious about who you let into your home. The actions of these homeowners will likely prevent this defendant from going into anyone else's home. Chris Hansen, thanks so much for coming on.
Jesse,
You can
I
check him
appreciate
out.
it. Always good to see it.
Oh, great to see you. You can check out Chris on True Blue. Also, Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. I encourage everybody to check it out. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sorry this is the story we talked
That's
about.
kind of what we do here on this network, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Good seeing you, Chris. All right, everybody. That's all we got.
That dude's disgusting and a creep. Next video.